is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovation Show. We're doing it live from Sun Valley. My special guest today is Robert Scoble. Robert, now this is his second appearance on the show, back when it was a podcast, but this is his first time on the radio show, so I had to give him a little advice on that we do have to follow SEC rules.
Yeah.
But Robert, hey, thanks for joining me today. I know we're both taking a little bit of time out of our day today here at the Dent Conference.
Well, you know, I already got my ski runs in, so I'm happy.
Yeah, you were up early on the mountain today.
Heck yeah.
I was still snoozing away. I just had my grandchild number 4 born on Wednesday. So
they give us early ups, they call it.
Yeah, you guys went up to with the ski team, right?
With the ski patrol.
Ski patrol, right?
And we went and checked the first runs to make sure there's no debris on the runs.
Oh, so no one to run into when you're up there.
Nobody.
So hey. Last year, you were the one who actually enticed me to come to the Dent Conference. So let's talk a little bit about Dent. What's the background and history? How did the Dent Conference come around?
It's my former boss. So I used to work at a magazine in the 90s, and we bought a company that does conferences, and Steve Roback was my boss then.
Oh.
And so, but he always wanted to do something like a Pop Tech or a TED up in Sun Valley, because he has a house here, and he wanted to get cool people to come up and see the beauty that it is here in Sun Valley. And Dent came out of a quote from, he highly recommended putting a dent in the universe. And so Steve started it with the founders of Pixar and other cool people. We have astronauts here this week, and cool musicians and a lot of nerds, you know.
There's a few propeller heads laying around here.
Like you and there's a whole bunch of people here. I was just talking to Dan Shine. He used to work at AMD, and Andy Grignon's here, who was one of the 12 guys who built the iPhone at Apple, that kind of thing, right? So there's a lot of fun people here.
Yeah, but what's interesting though is
photographers too. You know?
Well, this conference though is different. I mean, I go to TED, the big TED event every year. It's 2,500 people.
Yeah.
Dent is 200 people.
Yeah.
So it's a lot smaller, but it just has a completely different feel to it. It's more about, and the interesting thing I find about the Dent Conference is people can come in with just a wide range of opinions and perspectives, and everybody has a voice, and you can have great conversations. I went to a conversation last night that I got pulled into, a bunch of people who live here in Sun Valley who wanted to have a political conversation, and so they kind of pulled me in because I'm not the traditional Silicon Valley political bent. So I got pulled in. It was a great dinner last night from the standpoint of a conversation that you just normally would, not a conversation I would have at TED. Let's put it that way.
No, it's much more chill, and people. It's a fun conference. You know, I just got back from South Africa, or got here through South Africa, where I was at conferences that had 1,500 people at it, and then went to South by Southwest, which had 50,000 people at it, and was extraordinary too. And it's just nice to come here and just sort of chill out, you know, but chill out with cool and interesting people. I mean, I was skiing this morning with a photographer who comes back here in July for the Allen and Company event. So people, there's been a billionaire in this bed. People don't think about it, but they buy every room in the lodge and the inn, and they have this conference in July here called the Allen and Company, which Tim Cook goes to, and Sheryl Sandberg, and all sorts of interesting publishing people, you know, and Murdochs and blah 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 blah, right here, and it's really hard to get into. I can get as close as the little white fence for the press area, which is sort of funny. They have a little white fence, you know, where, you know, the billionaires walk between the two hotels here, and you're allowed to talk to them and take pictures of them there, but you're not allowed to come in the conference. But
yeah, I saw your pictures posted from last year. But you just mentioned you were in South Africa. You've been on the road a lot here lately, doing a bunch of conferences. So So what's the interesting innovations, technologies in South Africa right now?
Oh, it's the same as at South by, and it's the same thing we're talking about here: VR, AR, augmented reality, and virtual reality. And then just discussions of politics are coming up quite a bit because of Trump. What else came up? The economy is sort of in between cycles right now. One thing I noticed at South by, I was asking lots of people, do you have any cool apps on your iPhone? 4 years ago, that was everybody would have an answer to that question. They would have said, "Oh yeah, I got Waze, or I got this, or I got that," right? And this time it's like, I haven't gotten a good app in a while, or why do
you think that is?
I think we're tired because we filled up our screens with the apps we have, and I have like 110 apps on my phone, right?
And how many of those do you use
on a regular basis? I would say at least 60%.
Wow.
Right? And if you give me a monthly basis, 90%. Because if I don't use them, I delete them to make way for another one, right? And that's sort of what we're doing. Most of us can handle about 100 apps at most, and that's for somebody like me who's pushing myself to try new things, right? My wife, 40 apps,
yeah.
Right? And we've filled it up, and we've decided what apps we're going to use for everything, and we're not hungry for apps right now. And so that's one thing I noticed at South by this year.
I just came back from Mobile World Congress. We were talking about politics, and it's funny, when I was in Barcelona 2 weeks ago, everybody wanted to ask about the U.S. Political situation and the election going on. It gets a little old after a while, but and then I spent a fair amount of time in Rwanda working on my stuff in Africa. But it is interesting about how important the economy plays, around the world, particularly when you're trying to introduce new technologies. If you think about the cost of VR, albeit it's it's coming down pretty quickly, it's still out of the reach for a good segment of the global population.
One thing we did do talk about is the new media landscape. Travis Barker on my Facebook page right now, he's watching live, asks, does Dent post videos? I don't think Dent does, but now we have the ability to live broadcast video on Periscope and Facebook. I'm using Facebook here, and I can see doing a lot of live video in the next 2 days. So stay tuned, and there's some interesting people here, from musicians to photographers to technologists to astronauts that I think we'll be doing interesting stuff on stage. But really, Dent to me isn't what's on stage. It's what's going on in the lobby of the inn here. It's just a lot of fun to get a group of interesting people together and just and talk, And it's hard to capture that with live video, particularly because it's usually off the record kind of stuff. But it's not off the record because we're saying anything stupid. We're just we're just being ourselves, and it's nice to not be recorded for a bit and just sit down with your friends and talk through things and see where the world's going,
Yeah, but you were talking about live video, and recently you did an experiment where you were trying to use, was it Snapchat you were trying to?
I'm still using Snapchat. In fact, going to South by and hanging out with the real Snapchat stars, I have with at one of the panel or one of the events with a bunch of influencers, I guess you would call them, in the Snapchat world, some of whom have millions of followers on Snapchat. And you really understand how to use Snapchat. It's very different than Facebook, right?
Yeah.
You can't do this long live video the way I'm doing on Facebook, right? It's very snappy, short, medium, and you have to have some attitude. You watch the number one guy, DJ Khalid, and he's just very funny, snappy, has something positive to say, and moves on. And he does that several times a day, and he's been able to resurrect his career doing that. So
yeah, that's one thing I haven't played around with. I haven't spent much time with Snapchat. I was following your comment that you were gonna try to do it heavy duty, and then you went to South by Southwest, and that kind of seemed to be a little bit of a flip on your view on Snapchat.
Yeah, It still isn't the best medium for what I do, which is long interviews with innovators or going on a tour of an R&D lab, that kind of thing. But yeah, I can see doing it for some things. And what really kept me in was they said use Snapchat to push audience, particularly a young audience, to your other stuff where you have the longer, a Medium post or a Facebook Live thing or a Periscope thing, right?
Well, that's great. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. Yes, we are on live radio, so therefore we do have to take the quick break here. But we'll be right back. We're going to continue the conversation with Robert Scoble here live from the Dent Conference in Sun Valley. So stay tuned. If you are joining us live, we're going to take Q&A during the commercial break, so stay on and ask Robert whatever questions you might want to ask. And we'll be back right after this commercial break at Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We're coming back from commercial break here into this segment, continuing our conversation with Robert Scoble. Robert and I are both attending the Dent Conference here in Sun Valley for this weekend. Robert's been involved with Dent from the very beginning. He talked me into coming last year, and I fell in love with the Dent Conference, so came this year. And needless to say, given that the show is live on Sundays, we're doing the show live from Dent. So Robert, let's talk a little bit about VR. You've been kind of talking this up for quite some time now. So
virtual reality.
Yeah, so
for those who don't know what VR means.
So what's got you so excited on VR?
It started about 18 months ago it started 2 decades ago when I first got a chance to be in a VR setup with an SGI machine,
those were the days.
$100,000 machine. And VR did happen back then because it really did take an SGI machine to make anything unusual like a flight simulator work for you. And today we have mobile phones that are pretty darn powerful and are you could slap that into a Google Cardboard or a Samsung Gear VR and off you go. Now let's just break down the market. In the next 2 months, the first consumers are getting one of the high-end headsets, Oculus Rift from Facebook, or the HTC Vive, which is a really nice one, or the Sony Gear VR comes out in October. So I'm sorry, Sony PlayStation VR comes out in October. Sony's is probably the cheapest. It's around $500 for the headset, plus you need a PlayStation. So around $800, somewhere in that neighborhood will get you set up. And it's pretty damn capable. I played with it at South by Southwest.
I haven't seen the Sony one.
Yeah, they just started showing it off to the public at South by Southwest. It doesn't have quite as many polygons. So here's what's going on. HTC Vive has 2 little sensors that sit on your wall, and they watch your room, and they build a virtual box on your floor. So if you have a 15 by 15 space, it'll build a little box, and it sees everything that goes on in that box. So you can walk around a game or a journalism kind of thing, like walk around a camp or something like that. And that's the best of the headsets technically. It doesn't mean it's going to be the best product, but technically it's the best. HTC also requires you to have a PC with a really nice NVIDIA GPU. which means it can throw a lot of polygons at your eyes very, very quickly. And so you can have really mind-blowing experiences. And people who get these things on their face and go through a few demos, a 10 or 15-minute demo, they usually come out with a stunned look on their face and a smile. And that's I call it the VR smile. It's so common, and that I stood outside at Web Summit and watched people get these kinds of demos at the Oculus booth, and people used expletives when they got out of the demo because they said they'd never expected that, even though I had been telling them it's mind-blowing for 6 months. They still didn't believe it. You won't. The radio listener who's listening to this will not believe me. They will not.
Well,
but the second you get over your friend's house that has an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift or a Sony PlayStation VR, you're going to have a mind-blowing experience. You're going to want it, right?
Well, I think that's exactly right, because when, in my day job at Cable Labs, we did a market trial where we brought in consumers off the street who'd never experienced VR, and we put them in the goggles. We had all the different varieties, and we played a bunch of different content, whether it was travel content or drama or sports. And of any technologies that we've tested for kind of doing this predictive model of consumer adoption, VR just was off the scale. Once you've experienced it, you could read about it, you can see a video on YouTube describing it, but until you put it on your head, you actually go through the experience. At Mobile World Congress, Samsung had it set up with the roller coaster simulation or the roller coaster video with you in the motion controlled seats. And I just sat there and just watched people who put them on, spent the 8 minutes going through the Samsung demo and then coming off of that demo, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
We should talk about your new job as your CEO of Cable Labs. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's not so new. It's coming up on year 4. Actually, it's been going by. And you've also got a new gig that you just announced a couple days ago.
I'm leaving Rackspace, where I'm the futurist at Rackspace, and I'm going to join UploadVR, which is a new media company covering the virtual reality space. So I'm all in because I'm so bullish.
You jumped into the deep end of the VR pool.
I'm so bullish about VR. It's going to be a turbulent 2 years because people aren't going to get demos, and it's going to be a while before mass market really shows up because they're too expensive. They're tethered. There's some issues that need to be worked through, and it's unclear how much content's going to be there for the first year or so. There's certainly enough to get me to buy it, but 6 months from now, am I going to be really bored because there's lack of content? We don't know. There's a lot of questions in the industry that need to be answered before it goes really, really mainstream.
So describe UploadVR.
Yeah.
Because I think, everybody saw your announcement. You did it on Facebook. You did it on your social media. But I'm not sure a lot of the mainstream people know who UploadVR even is.
No, UploadVR is a new company that covers it's a media company that covers the virtual reality space. And there's probably about 6 of these blogs or media companies that are doing this. It's just my favorite one. So I picked my favorite one. Will Mason and Taylor over there have done a really great job of getting a company started. They got $1.3 million of investment to get it off the ground, and they have a nice new office in San Francisco where they're going to host quite a few startups in the office and try to help the community out and get a ecosystem built up.
Yeah, that's what if I was to describe it. It's kind of almost a ecosystem catalyst is a way to kind of describe what the Upload guys are doing.
They have a big event in January on the waterfront where they show off the latest games and stuff that are coming out for VR and have some music and stuff like that. So they have a potential of getting a really big festival going. But it's a new media company. It's a startup, and very different than Rackspace is right now. Rackspace is moving along, and it's a public company. So I was a public figure of a public company for a public face of a public company for 7 years now, and it's time to go try something new, particularly since these markets are so interesting. I mean, VR alone is going to be an interesting market, right? But augmented reality is going to follow it within 3 to 5 years, and that is going to be a mind-blowing industry.
So we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to hop out, do some commercials. We'll be right back. We're going to continue the conversation with Robert. So stay right there. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So coming back from this commercial break, we're continuing the conversation with Robert Scoble, picking up on our conversation on VR and AR. So we talked about VR in the last segment. So in this case, let's talk a little bit about augmented reality. What does that really mean, and why some people actually interchange the terms, but they're actually something completely different?
Well, if we look 10 years from now, I think we call it mixed reality, actually, because you're going to be wearing a piece of glass on your face, and you're going to be able to pull up a virtual reality environment where all you see is pixels. You don't see the real world. It'll black out the real world. Or you'll be in augmented reality where you see through the glass or through the optic system and see the real world. And then you'll see virtual items on the real world. Like we were talking about, you could put a TV set on your wall virtually. Or you could have Daffy Duck crawling around the floor around our bedroom here and entertaining us, right? Or you could be dressed up as SpongeBob, something crazy, right? And we're starting to get the first demos of these things. Microsoft HoloLens is out there with a product that's about $3,000 that they used on the space station already. It's a device you wear on your face. It has radars to map out the room we're in and see where every table, every light, every wall, every surface is, and then it can overlay virtual items or holograms on top of that real world. And at TED they showed this off where there was a guy across the street from TED standing on the surface of Mars, walking around Mars, and it's pretty mind-blowing.
It was, I have to say, I was in the main stage event at TED watching that demo, and I have to tell you, it was amazing. I mean, it was absolutely mind-blowing seeing it live. So
let's, a lot of people who are watching this on Facebook are asking me about what are the players. And you might have heard of this company called Magic Leap. Mm-hmm. Magic Leap got
the whale coming out of the gym in a school is their kind of their demo loop that they're got running around on Facebook and that.
Now they got $1.3 billion of investment without having a product and without having a customer. So think about that one.
Hold on, 1.3 billion, mean actual cash?
Actual cash from Google and Alibaba. So the demos of these things are so mind-blowing. And people, when you get the demo, and I got the demo of Meta, which is a competitor of Magic Leap, you instantly see this as a multi-$100 billion industry coming at us over the next, let's say, 15 years. So it gets investors really hot and bothered. And Magic Leap is the number one device that we've seen, or that some people have seen. Apple's working on one, but nobody is willing to tell us what that device is like.
Yeah, well, that's been the rumor running around for a couple of months now. And you look at the people they're hiring, it kind of, you get all the hints, but no news really coming out of that.
Yeah, Apple's very secretive. But we know they're working on it. They bought 7 different companies in this space, and we've gotten enough winks from Apple employees to know that they're working on it, that they're watching Magic Leap very closely. In fact, I spoke at Virginia Tech and I asked my audience who has seen Magic Leap, and 7 people in the audience had seen it, which is extraordinary. Most of the time, nobody in my audience has seen Magic Leap. Right? So here is a school where 7 people have seen it. In other words, they've been recruited by Magic Leap because Virginia Tech is one of the top virtual reality colleges in the world. And Apple just that week had hired their teacher.
They hired him away, right?
And so he's seen it, of course.
Yes.
And so now Apple knows what they're up against, and Apple will be a major player in this space. Amazon is working on a pair that I hear. Microsoft has HoloLens. Meta has a very capable product that was built with $22 million of investment, and they're about to announce another round, a pretty sizable round.
Meta also demoed at TED this year, and they got a lot of buzz off of that demo. People walked out not even having had the experience yet, just watching how great the demo was on stage, on the main stage at TED.
Well, if you actually got to try it, Meta has a wider angle, viewing angle. It feels more lifelike. It feels like you're in Tony Stark's lab when you're wearing it. And yeah, it's big right now. These are things that are 3 to 5 years away for consumer uses. But Meta has 1,000 customers already, because anybody with CAD files, and CAD files build almost every product or a building or a city or a theme park, are using augmented reality to do things. For instance, Caterpillar uses Meta and another company called ODG to do training. So if you're a mechanic at Caterpillar working on these $1 million tractors, you put on augmented reality glasses, and it shows you how to fix the tractor. It actually overlays on top of the real tractor what you should be seeing, where the 4 screws are that you need to unscrew, what wires you need to find to fix the problem that you're fixing, and it augments, right? It augments the real world, and that's a little taste of what's coming for consumers in 3 to 5 years, but it's already here for enterprises.
Yeah, and I saw in the Meta demo was about healthcare, where they actually were loading like MRI and CAT scan data into a Meta, and then showed and allowed a collaboration around a health situation. And it's just mind-blowing, the data and then the overlay augmentation of that information right onto the onto the glasses. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting, but that's going to follow VR by 3 to 5 years. VR actually has to be popular before AR, because we need a lot of developers who are trained on Unity to make these holograms. I mean, if we want Daffy Duck to run around the floor here, we have to have somebody who renders him in Unity.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Unity.
Yeah.
So who are they? Why have they gotten such a... I mean, John Regazzolo, the CEO at Unity, he was formerly the CEO at EA, but John's really hot on, obviously he's been very successful, but it seems like everybody's just piled on to Unity as kind of being, lack of a better descriptor, the engine.
Yeah, Unity is an engine or a platform that builds these virtual worlds. It started as a video game platform, so developers would use it to make the video game that you would walk around and shoot at your friends or whatever you had to do in your video game. And Unity is the platform that everybody is seemingly standardizing around. But there are some people working on other competitive platforms that I've started seeing prototypes of, So in the next year, I think you'll see other platforms that will bring new capabilities to developers beyond Unity. But Unity, Meta, I asked Merron, how do you prepare for this augmented reality world? And he said, learn Unity, start building things in Unity, because he needs these holograms to be built in Unity so he can display them in the augmented reality glasses. Now, what he's not telling you is he has a team of really high-end software people building software that sees your fingers in front of your face and lets you control the user interface. You can grab things out of the air and put them on the floor. You can poke at things. You can swipe things. You can gesture to things with your hands, and that's very exciting.
And that was the demo that they did with this, this medical experiment. It was 2 people actually manipulating, in this case, a heart. Turning it around, but it was 2 different people, 2 different sets of glasses manipulating in the same environment, but actually recognizing the fingertips and being able to do the manipulation. Yeah. So let's hold this. We'll come right back from this commercial break. And we're going to continue coming into our last segment. We're going to continue on with Robert Scoble. So stay right there. If you've got your questions, post them up on Facebook. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So welcome back to Killer Innovations. You're listening to the last segment of the show today with Robert Scoble. We've been talking about a lot of things, Robert's travels, the DENT conference, but we've been spending a little bit of time here talking about virtual reality and augmented reality. And I want to talk specifically about what are your thoughts with regards to the whole area around content, and where's content going to come from?
Oh man, that's a big question. Right today, we are seeing marketing activations, and when you talk to marketers and they talk about activations, they're talking about these mega booths at the Super Bowl or at South by Southwest. And at South by Southwest, for instance, McDonald's had an activation with 4 of these HTC Vive machines, and they built software to let the people who went through the booth paint a 3D painting. It was really pretty nice. It took 4 months for them to develop that, and that's the early look at content. Right out of the gate is stuff like that. IBM had an activation. Samsung had an activation, and Gatorade had an activation. They were all over town in Austin. Now, what they're really showing you behind the scenes is the games that are coming. Sony announced, I think, 25 games. Oculus Rift announced a bunch of games and experiences, and these are really immersive, mind-blowing experiences. They're not your usual game, and let's just break it down, some of them. One of them at the Sony booth, they put me into a shark cage, and they lowered me into the water virtually, and took us way down. And eventually, I ended up in the place where a shark was eating the cage and eating me. And I found myself backing up, even though my mind said this is a video game, is okay. You're not going to get eaten by a shark. But I still felt myself backing up because it wasn't very comfortable.
So here's the question: Did you have a Fitbit on? Check your heart rate?
No, I should have. But they quite enjoy watching people. In fact, they say many people who went through that demo would take the headset off. It just couldn't handle the intensity of being eaten by a shark. And there were lots of games like that. If you go to Facebook and get the Oculus demo, they take you into a virtual room called the Toy Box. And so you're wearing your Oculus Rift, and somebody else in the world is wearing their Oculus Rift, and you're playing things like ping pong over the internet with some other person. Right?
So in this case, though, this is the goggles, though, tethered to a PC. You need to have a PC local in order to render this. Yeah,
because you need the big NVIDIA card to throw as many polygons at your eyes to make it believable. Really immersive media. And you're seeing a whole bunch of things, games from Call of Duty style stuff to flying games to running games to all sorts of different games are going to come out, right? And new games that we don't even know about yet are coming out every week. There's games being discussed. Budget Cuts is one that I'm looking forward to, where you walk around an office building and you explore the office building, and then you pick up and collect things like knives, and eventually robots come running around the corner, and you have to kill the robots with the knives before they get to you. It's sort of like Shoot the Zombie, and it's quite entertaining, and it's quite intense, and it's very immersive, and it's a lot of fun. So we're going to have a lot of fun this Christmas at the cool kids' houses, right, who buy these new headsets. there on the other side, there's also a lot of new music videos coming out. At Coachella last year, I brought a 360-degree camera. It was 6 GoPros that I took there in a little ball up on a stick. And my video that's up on Facebook has gotten 2.2 million views so far. So Coachella is doing a whole bunch of things with VR this year. And you're going to see a whole bunch of music video experiences by the end of the year. You're also seeing new kinds of journalism. At the Samsung booth at South by Southwest, they took you into a refugee camp. And I had one CEO tell me he cried in this thing because it's so emotional to be in the camp. And it's very different when you're using VR to experience that than to use a 1080p camera, right? A regular camera. So there's a lot of things coming. Movies are coming, games are coming, journalism is coming, music videos are coming, and it's a fun new world. It's going to be quite amazing.
Hey, Robert, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time out of the DENT conference to come hang out and share with us kind of what you're thinking about on the VR, AR side, but also your travels. Yeah. I'm sure everybody who listens knows how to find you, but what's the best place if people really want to keep up with what you're looking at?
Robert Scoble on Facebook, Scoble. And that's where I put most of my time. I do a lot of live video with cool people, like I'm doing one right now with you. And that's up on Facebook. I'm on Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+.
Everything. But Facebook is kind of your home.
Yeah, and I have an email newsletter too, which really is a compilation of what happened on Facebook over the past week.
And where do they sign up for that at?
On Facebook.
On Facebook? Link. Okay, yeah. So just click over there and you can get the newsletter.
On my About page.
Because in case you miss it, Robert probably posts more on Facebook than any other person I follow.
Yeah.
On any given day. So, but it's great stuff. Keeps you up to speed on everything going on. So
I follow 5,000 people, friends, and then I follow another 5,000, and I follow many lists. So there's a lot of news there.
Yeah. So this is hey, Robert, again, thanks a lot for coming on the show. We will have this up on the podcast on Tuesday, so hop on over to killerinnovations.com. That's where we'll also have the show notes and the links to everything that Robert talked about today, so you can check out all the companies. And we again appreciate you taking the time. So stay tuned for next week's show. We will have another exciting guest. I'm going to leave it as a little bit of a tease. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to find out who that is. And this has been Phil McKinney on the Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
You hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. Biz Talk Radio.